Good morning and welcome to Morning Job. We're brought to you as always by our friends at the Get Go Cafe and Market, where, Carter?
We're getting the fish sandwiches.
It's fish sandwich month.
Woo! It's
over
March.
There.
Get the fish fries.
They're good. They're
fresh.
Sandwich. They have tartar. They've got ranch.
Yeah,
they've got all kinds of good
all
stuff.
the kind of fish is nice and light. I've had one or two already. Go get you a fish sandwich right now.
The Steelers did some shopping here of late, and we're going to go through that in this episode, starting with Mark Barron. The first thing that I want to hear, I don't want to hear the good stuff right now. I want to hear what we're going to hate about him.
Oh, okay.
Once we get to October, November, December. Because right now, when you sign somebody now, especially when you go, 2 years, $12 million, this is all happy stuff. This is great. What are we not going to like about him? Because we liked John Bostic at this time last year, too.
Well, see, Mark Barron is the opposite of John Bostic. He's not the big body that can eat up blockers, that can get in and be physical and run. He's very smart, but the problem is he's a converted safety to linebacker way back when. So his body he never really put on the weight. I mean, you're not going to. It's just not his body type. So if a guard gets to him at the second level, he's going to be in trouble, right?
Yeah.
And that's
now that said, guards didn't get to him with the Rams because they had AD and everybody else.
And
Dominic
and Sue were just eating people alive,
right?
Which allowed him to flow freely.
Okay.
So but that's one thing the Steelers saw a lot of. Hargrave, Hayward, and Tuitt. They were plugging up a lot of guys, which allowed Bostic to fly around. But the problem with Bostic was
he didn't fly around.
Well, no, but he would get to his gaps, but he couldn't fly in the in pass coverage. Barron's going to be the guy that
I didn't see Bostic flying anywhere. Where was he making plays?
Gap to gap. He was leading the team in tackles. He was a leading.
You have to lead the team in tackles at that position.
But that's what I'm saying. He was getting to his gaps and attacking at those spots. That's why he was a Pro Bowl vote getter until they say, okay, now teams are throwing on him and he's a liability. That's where Mark Barron's going to be the opposite. He's an upgrade from L.J. Fort, but he's still not your all-time starter that you want in the 3-4.
We'll see. If he drops back into coverage and does some things that these guys weren't doing, I'm kind of okay with this. But
especially on third downs.
I still want impact, man.
That's absolutely what they got to get.
First round.
So they signed Donte Moncrief, a former speedster out of Ole Miss. He's bounced around the NFL a little bit, coming off the Jaguars.
He's a former speedster.
Yeah, well, he's still a speedster.
He's now slow.
No, he's still speed. He's still fast. I should take that. I'm sorry for saying it wrong. But he ran a 4.4 out of college.
You, Carter,
yeah.
A yellow pen out here.
But here's the thing.
Former speedster.
But
I am also a former speedster.
You were never fast.
No,
but the thing is about Moncrief is that the Steelers need speed on the outside, some guy outside the numbers. So he's at least a threat. But the problem is he has such inconsistent hands. He's not a combat catch guy. People used to call Mike Wallace a one-trick pony. Guess what they're about to get with Donte Moncrief? He's a good guy to have on the roster. I think he's an upgrade from Justin Hunter. But that's it. They still need to go get themselves a playmaker wide receiver that can succeed outside the numbers and get physical.
So he's basically, when you look at Moncrief, and again, anybody can have a good set of highlights.
Yes.
And I looked at his highlights, and they are what they are. They're impressive. He also had some big plays that he made for big yardage. But I didn't see anything where I went, whoa.
Right.
And that, to me, is a concern, again, in the same context as inside linebacker, where what you need is impact.
Yes, and that's the thing. Moncrief, for me, when I saw them sign Moncrief, I said, okay, this is the Steelers saying this is a depth guy. We're still going to address wide receiver in the top 3 rounds because he's a guy that you can put in there, and when they spread out wide, when they get 4 wide receivers, he's a good guy to have outside the numbers because the defense will say, okay, we at least have to put someone fast on him because if he runs by our 4th-string cornerback, Ben Roethlisberger can hit him for a touchdown, and that's something we have to at least pay attention to.
And being fair to Moncrief here, he was playing, with a pretty dubious quarterback in Blake Bortles, so he could run the world's greatest routes, beat people left and right, inside the numbers, outside the numbers. It wouldn't have mattered because Bortles wouldn't have seen him.
Right, and that was the problem. When he was with Andrew Luck, he was doing a little bit better.
A lot better. The numbers are a lot better.
He had a 7-touchdown season. But the thing was, it's still the inconsistent hands. He doesn't jump up for the ball often. He lets it come down to him, and that's where the mistakes start to happen. Even, in fact, in Carter's classroom this week, I'm going to be talking about his numbers and how he's going to be able to contribute. But there's a specific clip of just last year where Steven Nelson was guarding starting Donte Moncrief in a game. And we're going to be talking about him. And the ball sort of doesn't, he doesn't go up and get the ball, and Nelson's able to take it out of his hands.
Yeah, well, that also can come with the help of the quarterback coming up to you and saying. So maybe we'll see some of that in Latrobe.
Maybe.
Steven Nelson, the conversation with him could probably begin and end with 4 interceptions, because 4 interceptions on this defense is like, yeah, I mean, he would just walk in like Rod Woodson in his prime, right? But that's not what he is.
No.
He's not a star.
No.
And at the same time, here again, he's coming from a terrible Kansas City defense.
Yeah.
That had all kinds of issues, and he got targeted a ton.
The most.
The most.
Yeah, he had the most,
anybody in the NFL.
Most targets and the second most yards.
And at the same time, so you can say, all right, well, of course he got 4 picks. He was always looking at the football. What's the fatal flaw here?
The fatal flaw with Steve Nelson is that he's not the athletic type that's going to shut down a wide receiver. He often would get beaten his routes, and
he's not your island guy.
Exactly. Yeah, you cannot afford to put him on an island with another team's best receiver, which often happened in Kansas City, and he would get beat. But the thing is Steven Nelson was in a rough position because remember last year the Chiefs traded away their top cornerback Marcus Peters because he went nuts, and they said we have to get him out of the locker room, much like what the Steelers have been doing with their locker room. And Steven Nelson, just being a better team guy, was sort of just moved up to the #1 corner spot, and he did okay. He wasn't horrible, but the thing was that he got beat a bunch of times. But in all the targets and in leading and having the most yards surrendered as a cornerback, he only allowed 53% of passes completed his way, which is significant because Nelson is going to be a guy, and I showed this in Carter's classroom before. He can get beat by a Brandon Cooks or a fast receiver, Mike Williams from the Chargers, but he will fight to the very end, and somehow he does find the ball with his hands. He'll rip it out of somebody's hand.
I guess the big question then that we're going to end up seeing over the course of this coming season is how he gets used in relation to Joe Hayden. I mean, Joe Hayden, even at his age, is still going to be the guy that you line up opposite the other team's best player, not just for his continuing athleticism, but more than anything for his smarts and experience and everything that he brings. How that works with the other guy. Look, when we were talking about Cody Sensabaugh or whoever was put on the other corner, well, but the fact is, most games, we didn't really talk about them that much because they weren't that much of a factor because they're going against a 2 receiver here. And if you're saying that Steve Nelson can handle that, can he be that guy that handles the 2 role or even a 3 role, depending on how it goes here, then that's a pretty nice acquisition at a position that I don't think everybody saw as being mandatory.
I mean, personally, as an X's and O's guy, I saw cornerback as a complete mandatory position the Steelers had to address. I thought they would do it in the draft, and they would get a lesser free agent guy, but Steven Nelson being a legit #2 corner, you could plug and play in this defense right now. He could take away your Marvin Joneses. Now, when you face teams that their #2 receivers like an Adam Thielen, or like with the Browns, now they have Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr.
Well, they're very different receivers, but yeah.
Right, but still, those are different kind of threats that you'll be like, okay, this is going to be question marks. But all in all, a #2 cornerback, he's a huge upgrade from what the Steelers had to consider last year.
Yeah, and Artie's just finito, right?
Yeah, unless a lot of people get hurt and he has a great training camp, I don't see him getting.
So Artie's finito, everybody.